Let's clap it up.
We're back.
We're so back. Let's clap it up. After a long hiatus, not really a long hiatus, things just move quickly. We are back from the blackout room.
There you go.
That was all I had.
Yeah.
We're back from the blackout room. This is season 2. Monad in the morning. Look at how crispy this setup is. We got all new
Ninja says Monad in the morning dark mode.
dark mode.
I like that.
Yes, thank you, Ninja.
We're just incredibly locked in now.
We are. I mean, we were incredibly locked in before, but now we are incredibly locked in hopefully crispy 4K.
Yeah.
The viewers can finally see just how ugly I actually am. Congratulations. Feel free to turn off your video and just tune into the audio if the crispy 4K shot is problematic for you. We are back though. This is Monad in the Morning, season 2. I'm super pumped. You might be wondering what's different about season 2 compared to season 1, besides the fact that we're on dark mode now. Well, stick around for the next year and you will find out. We have been running Monad in the Morning this is our 52nd episode. So put all those episodes together and you have one full year of Monad in the Morning. Imagine that.
Yeah, pretty incredible, man. I remember when this first kind of started off, we're transitioning away from the podcast style, and since then have had so many incredible guests on. It's been a bit of a crazy year for crypto, but the one thing stays the same. You tune in, Monad in the Morning is going to be here.
Yeah, if you are tuning in to 52 episodes of Monad in the Morning, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you're fantastic. Thank you for being here. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you at least had a good time. Today, you'll probably get some of both because we have none other than the legendary James Hunsaker back on Monad in the Morning. He has been on the show several times before, but not in a while, not in a hot minute. So bunch to catch up on. The Category Labs team is so cracked. I say this, I've probably said this 52 times on the show already, but they just do not stop shipping. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. The state that it seems Ethereum is trying to get to over the next couple years is very much so aligned with the roadmap for the Monad protocol. And as Keone puts it, a lot of these problems have been solved already on Monad. So if you are excited about the EVM, if you are excited about performant blockchain, I hope you are here with us on Monad in the Morning today, because there's no better place to be.
100%. And I think what's exciting too is a lot of what Monad has already created, as Danny said, is a bit of the end state Ethereum L1 scaling roadmap. But because we've already done it, then the more exciting thing is, well, where's Monad going from here? And I think what people don't think about so much is that these changes compound on each other. So let's say it's another 2 to 3 years of Ethereum building out their scaling plans. In these 2 to 3 years, we're going to see what James Hunsaker and the team is cooking up. And I think that's what I'm most excited to dig in with him. It's how does that advantage compound over time? Everyone else is playing catch up in the field. Where does the future of EVM research go from there?
Yeah, 100%. James is coming on in roughly 8 minutes, so pretty soon. Couple topics of the day. One timely topic. A pretty interesting app launched yesterday, I believe was their kickoff. It is called We Like Sports. It is actually being built right here in New York from the studio. So shout out the studio. The best place to build in New York and beyond, hands down. We Like Sports is being built from the studio. They have a Monad Madness pool open for March Madness college basketball tournament, and people can submit their brackets today. I think the cutoff is, the cutoff is actually really, really soon. The cutoff is in 6 minutes and 49 seconds.
So if you're watching, get in right now.
This is only relevant for the live viewers. However, We Like Sports does a lot more than just Monad or March Madness. So there's a lot to check out there. But they are launching for the March Madness pool. So if you want a chance to win, let's see, the pool is up to 320 USD. It is super easy to get started on the platform. It takes probably 1 minute to set up. And if you're really quick, then you can get your bracket in the next 6 minutes and have a shot at winning the pool. It is found at welikesports.com and on X, our favorite app, at loading. Handle is loading. We Like Sports. At play WLS. There you go. We like sports. Yes, we do. We like sports. We like money. We like on-chain sports. Check it out. All right, we got James coming up in 6-ish minutes. Interesting time in crypto more broadly. I think there's a good amount to cover here, but you know, you've got a lot happening in Washington, a lot happening in the prediction market space. You have more and more tokenization, more and more assets tradable on the blockchain. We had the first ever official S&P 500 perpetual contract, which I believe is available exclusively on Hyperliquid right now, but pretty big milestone in terms of blockchain being the venue for trading. And so I'm pretty excited about what we're seeing, even though a lot of the energy and activity is coming from kind of different corners that, you know, we haven't, maybe focused as much on historically as crypto natives. But, you know, despite the fact that sentiment, you know, continues to be pretty poor overall, albeit maybe slightly better than recent weeks. There's a lot happening in Washington on the regulatory side, on the TradFi adoption of crypto, and just more and more happening in the blockchain space. And then you have the whole agentic AI side as well, where blockchain is just really good for agents to be able to pay for things. And so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. I'm not sure what's on your radar.
Yeah, I mean, I think same as you, it's kind of a crazy time in the world we're living through, generally speaking. Crypto obviously plays a huge role in that. I think, as Danny said, the way I'm seeing markets right now, we're peaking into the neutral zone for the first time in, how long has it been? For the first time this year, at least. And I think part of that was looking forward towards the FOMC meeting. And then obviously that's very impacted by everything going on with Iran and the White House right now, where, you know, Trump is flip-flopping back and forth, saying the war might end soon. I think it's a little bit more complex than that. And, you know, oil goes downstream of everything. It impacts the consumer economy a lot. And you saw the Fed being a little bit more hawkish as a result of that. And, you know, crypto went up right before, went back down again. And I think everyone is waiting for liquidity conditions to improve. But again, we're in very uncharted waters. I think if you are in the markets, should definitely stay safe out there, because it is not an easy time to be in there. And as Danny said, the good thing though is that crypto cannot die. I think, first of all, like, that is the point of Bitcoin. That is the point of all of these assets that we're looking at in a state of AI and in turmoil. I think having these sovereign private assets is more and more important. And as you're saying, there's a lot of wins that keep stacking up. I think, in the poly market side, I think they announced today they just signed an exclusive deal with the MLB, which is extremely cool. Hyperliquid worked together with to list the S&P 500 on Trade XYZ. So there are all these things that are stacking up, and I think one of the biggest unlocks people have been talking about for the last I don't know, year and a half is at least around agentic payments, as you're saying. And we're seeing this really kick into gear right now where blockchains are really made for agents. Maybe we're going to get to a world where there's a million agents on chain, and there's like 10% of that of humans that are actually on chain. And we built these great things, permissionless rails, and it's going to be the machines that are trading these things. So the way I view it is this all fits into this like techno futurist world we're living in right now.
It's a bizarre and pretty hilarious time to be alive, to be honest. It's pretty funny. This tweet from Zach Voel. Zach, sorry if I'm butchering your name there, but Zach is, first of all, hilarious. But Polymarket launches this pop-up bar in Washington, D.C., and it's called the Situation Room. And, basically what they have is like, a bar, and there's a bunch of like live news feeds, and there's a bunch of like Polymarket markets. And so pretty cool pop-up overall. Zach grabs a screenshot of this and overlays Shane Gillis and Post Malone and just has them standing in the room there. And he captions it, crude is below $100 again. It's going lower. No, it's not. Do you know anything about oil? No. Do you? No. And that is just like the epitome of monitoring the situation and all the ridiculousness that's just going on right now. It is a very entertaining time to be alive. And if you don't believe in the simulation, then I would imagine that a lot of recent events are making you question that. I love the line from like a couple years back that the world ended during COVID and we're just now living in like pure random simulation. I could get behind that.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's one of those things where there's so much going on. You're kind of rewarded for paying attention, and now you can bet on everything. But at the same time, most of us have no idea what we're doing out there. I think that's what I mean. Like, you stay safe in these markets for sure. On the other side of it, though, there's a lot of things to be positive about, right? I think even with all the AI stuff, it doesn't make sense to just be a doomer all the time. And on the crypto side, it genuinely feels like people are starting to see the light on the other side of the tunnel for the first time. If you're a 4-year cycle theory believist, then this fall is looking like a good time. We maybe bottom in like October or November. But even besides that, it felt like we're slowly coming up for air when I think Bitcoin hit like 74K off the 60K low. So there's things to look forward to as we're getting out of this winter.
Are you saying bottom in October of 2026 or this past October?
NFA.
Yeah, obviously.
But I would say if you're to believe like just 4-year cycles, it would look like this, like 2026. So maybe we have around 6 more months ish of this like consolidation in this 60-70K range, and then things hopefully get silly again. That's what we're waiting on.
Yeah, I mean it is. It's like. It's almost not worth like doing the analysis at a certain point and just like stringing yourself along. It's, I mean, it's just kind of funny. Like there's this, maxing meta going on right now, like looks maxing and,
Is that the only maxing going on?
Well, that's what I'm kind of getting at here. Like I don't want to, get too deep into it.
I'm jester maxing on these streams.
Jester maxing, that's a good one. And the one Sol Jakey's pushing on that Mark Andreessen's been tweeting about, where you're just like, chill, man.
Can we say it on the stream?
I don't know. I don't want to offend anyone, but I think people know generally what we're talking about. If not, just go look up Sol Jakey or Mark Andreessen. Like they're tweeting about it nonstop.
Because he's also on like Instagram doing this influencer arc just around this. Like,
Jakey?
He's rebranded his entire identity to do this, and it's working. He's crushing it.
He is, hands down my favorite creator of all time. Web 2, Web 3. I hate those terms, but like, crypto, outside of crypto, what have you, I think he is just 100% the best creator. He is super hardworking. He comes up with these ideas. Jessup and I were talking about this last night. He's got like 20 irons in the fire at any given point, and it's just awesome to watch the way that a brain like that works.
Yeah.
And so
don't be like, sometimes the answer is don't overthink it and just go do it, and the world will reward that type of agency.
100%. Well, let's cut the yap, because the viewers don't want to hear from us. They want to hear from our guest who just walked in, James.
What's going on?
Welcome.
How are
Welcome
you,
back
James?
to Monad in the Morning Dark Mode.
It's the hot seat.
That's
Sir.
the hot seat.
Is this stable?
No guarantees that it's stable.
You're the first to test it out, man.
First person to sit in it.
you can let us know.
We're getting a couple creaks, maybe a screw loose or two, but it's held up thus far.
What's going on?
Pull
Welcome.
the mic up.
Want to pull that
Pull
mic
this
in a
over?
little bit?
All right,
Yeah,
swing
it'll
it.
swivel.
Just be able to swing it. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. James,
Chat.
thanks
Can you
thanks
hear
for coming
James?
in. Thanks for being here. It's been a couple months since we
Been a while, yeah.
had you on. What do you think of the new setup in
I
here?
like it. Yeah. Are we still doing the wheel?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
We've got two wheels.
still do
now,
the wheel?
Actually.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
owe some spins from the past week, where we were remote building out, finishing the build out here, which I can't take any credit for. Jessup and the media team certainly crushed it. But yeah, we'll be spinning today.
And what's the values for? Are those Monad tokens or?
Monad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So the way we do it, it's we worked with KZ from the Quant team to hopefully make it fun and get the gamification right. So the small wheel is small prizes,
Okay.
but there's a couple slots on there where you can hit the big wheel. The big wheel has big prizes. I think the ceiling is 42,690 mon, which is not
Somebody-
bad.
Somebody hit it.
2 weeks ago, I think we gave out a couple tens of thousands of dollars worth of mon. So there's real money involved here.
Nice.
How's things going? Category Labs has been full force. There's probably a lot to chat through on that front, but how are things going in general?
Yeah, the team is really busy. A lot of research going on, a lot of engineering stuff going on. So should be good. Some good stuff coming out over the coming months. There was just an upgrade like right now, 10:30. So yeah, I can talk about that at some point if you want to.
Yeah, let's jump into it.
Okay. Yeah, I just sent a tweet. So one of the main things is linear memory cost. So in Ethereum now, basically memory is what the working set of values you can have in your smart contract. So it's whatever you've read in from storage, and you're like processing. I don't know how technical you get here, but it's like the working set of basically data that you can process at once. And so in smart contracts, there's gas, and you have to basically pay to do operations. And memory expansion is like how much data you can use in this smart contract at once. And in Ethereum, it's quadratic. So the curve looks like this, and after you get to a certain point, it starts to become very expensive to expand the memory. So in this release for Monad, because Monad is Ethereum compatible, it was also quadratic. So now it's linear. So the curve looks like this, straight line. But actually the curve is more flat. So as you get to higher sort of memory usage patterns, it becomes much cheaper on Monad. So what does that mean for like smart contract developers? They can do more. They can load more data. They can have more data, a larger working set of data, so you can expand like what developers can do. It also means that they don't necessarily have to make optimizations, low-level optimizations, to try to conserve memory. And a lot of security issues with smart contracts come from trying to optimize too much. So yeah, it's a good change. I'll tweet a little bit later today. So basically we have cheaper memory now. Next thing is going to be cheaper storage. So that's the presentation Category Labs did yesterday. Some people from Category Labs did yesterday for the Foundry people. And then after that, that enables a third thing, which I'm not going to mention for a while, but we'll get there. So yeah, so cheaper memory, cheaper storage, and then that opens up what we can do later with more stuff. Other protocol changes in this release are Monad has asynchronous execution. This means that consensus and execution run in parallel in a pipelined fashion. And so how does Monad ensure that people can pay for transactions when you don't know necessarily what the previous block's execution result is? So it has this concept of reserve balance. Reserve balance is, it's like a little bit of money that's kept aside from your account that you can't spend. You can only spend it on gas. And so that ensures that like the transactions that are coming in now can still be paid for, even if a transaction that's being executed from a previous block like tries to drain the account, there's still a way to pay. So that design interferes with concepts like bundling, and bundling is like a service that takes many people's transactions, bundles it into one transaction, and sends that one transaction to the blockchain. How does that bundler know like what the gas is going to be used or they can't pay and this sort of thing? And so one way that this can be accomplished is we had to add an opcode that would basically tell you, is this going to run out of gas, sort of thing. And so bundling did not, there was some risk to the bundler before, now there's less risk to the bundler. And the risk was that the person couldn't pay for the transaction would abort, people would lose money. They would lose money on gas. And so this opcode allows them to write smart contracts that the bundlers can use to make this more robust, and it's safer for everybody. So those are probably the two main protocol changes.
Awesome. So 4 months ago, Monad mainnet launched, fully rebuilt EVM stack, vastly more performant in a still decentralized environment than basically anything that we had ever seen in the EVM space. And doing this from scratch as an L1, that was quite well received and really cool. But I think there's probably still some lagging catch up as people realize like just how innovative this is. In the meantime, a bunch of additional releases have been pushed that make it easier and more secure for developers to build things on Monad, and this is part of that. From like a broad strokes perspective, I'm curious like how you think about the current state of Monad as like a home for builders on the EVM versus like what Vitalik's been talking about with the walkaway test and Ethereum revisiting L1 scaling and this effectively 5-year roadmap. Like where would you say, like I guess how close is Monad and the Monad roadmap to the current thinking on scaling Ethereum, and like where is Monad at?
Yeah, I think the difference, some of the roadmap is similar. In fact, this linear memory expansion thing that I explained had already been proposed for Ethereum. We didn't implement it as Ethereum designed it, but it's similar. I think the difference between Ethereum and probably Monad is just the speed at which we can implement features. Ethereum is very conservative historically about making changes, and so they just take their time and things, there's a lot of debate and this sort of thing. Where I think Monad has more, has just a stronger view of what the design should be. And so I think that's probably the main difference you're going to see between Monad and Ethereum is just that Monad is going to move faster to implement changes. Don't necessarily like disagree with their roadmap. Like there's nothing wrong. Like everybody's making trade-offs in some way. We're working on some ZK project in collaboration with Ethereum Foundation. So you know, we're all trying to learn and get better and smarter and trying to design better things. The walkaway test, yeah, I don't know if I really believe that. That's more just like an economics thing. You know, these things are only as valuable as like society values them, right? And you know, historically there's been a lot of important sort of projects and companies, and you know, people thought they would never go away, and they're gone now. So you know, who knows, right? Like it's not. I think you need broad adoption. There's a lot of debate about like Ethereum cypherpunk sort of thinking and the corporate chains versus the cypherpunk chains. And I think the cypherpunks don't really care if other people use the chain, but you know, then they can basically just interact with each other. So, you know, everything's sort of a trade-off. Like you need broader adoption. So you can move this way a little bit for a while, and then you zigzag back this way a little bit. But if you always go on this side, maybe, you know, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see.
I mean, as someone who worked in the HFT space for over a decade, you probably have a unique position in that you kind of understand what these large trading firms or TradFi incumbents will look for when they evaluate a blockchain. And I would imagine you're thinking about how to, you know, bake that in directly to the Monad protocol itself. Is that correct? And how do you think about that?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time thinking about what would an HFT firm want if they were using Monad? What would a payments company want if they're using Monad? What would a neobank want if they were using Monad? So that's a huge focus for the team this year. We talking to a lot of people in different industries. What do they want? What do they think they want? People don't know what they want. That's a common thing, right? You ask a customer, like, what do you want? They don't really know. Yeah. They'll tell you something. Like, they'll give you an answer, but it's not necessarily what they want.
Yeah.
And maybe on your earlier point, too, about, like, you know, it only matters what people value things at. I think one of the big debates within crypto in the past year and a half has been around decentralization. Where obviously, to your point, like, you know, that is like the original cypherpunk ethos. When you think about Bitcoin, it is, the whole point is this like regulatory arbitrage in a sense. And then, you know, you talk a lot as well. People see your tweets debating sometimes about performance because, you know, there's limits to physics. And if you want to break past it, then you're talking about, you know, co-locating, just like extremely centralizing. What do you think the value of decentralization is in 2026, especially when you're talking about, you know, we want to provide value to neobanks and payment providers. And at the same time, there are people that are going with that approach, but saying like, no, like we're just going to co-locate everything. We're going to centralize the sequencer and we're going to get 2 million TPS out of it. What's your take on that, and how much is decentralization, or why does it matter right now?
Yeah, I think neobanks and payment companies, and they live in a very regulated space. They're money transmitting businesses. They have KYC, AML requirements. They can just never embrace pure sort of privacy. Like they would be in jail, right? Or they'd be sued, or there's been many companies that have had this sort of issue, even in the crypto industry. Multiple exchanges have gotten in trouble for this sort of stuff, like. And so how can they exist on like a fully decentralized platform but still have control? And so like this is one of the questions that we're trying to answer. They would ideally probably not want to run, you know, a bunch of hardware. They would not want their competitors to be able to interfere with their business. They want integrations down the road. They want integrations with other innovative technology that comes on chain, AI or integrations with lending platforms or stuff features they don't have internally. But at the same time, they have all these regulations they need to comply with. So how do you like balance all this and come up with a design? And so I think some of that stuff can be done purely in smart contracts, but I think there's things we can probably do at the core protocol layer that enable features that allow them to build those sort of systems that are compliant with government regulations and everything, but also still get sort of like the decentralization as well. And yeah, that's what one of the main efforts of the team this year to work on. But yeah, I mean, people don't really value decentralization until it matters. You know, like that's a classic thing. People are just not good at like risk evaluation in general, especially not tail risk evaluation. You know, this is why insurance companies and actuaries and all these people make tons of money, because they're good at that. But the average person's not good at that, and so their mindset is not valuing that. HFT firms, you know, the sophisticated players, like the market makers on crypto, they're very sophisticated. So they're doing risk mitigation stuff all the time. They're keeping the minimum balance on exchanges. Like, they don't trust exchanges either. They don't trust blockchains. They don't trust smart contracts. They don't trust anything. They're very careful about risk mitigation. But these are like very sophisticated people, and so the average person is not that aware, or not that operationally like risk and control of the risk.
It's an interesting time overall, because you have more what I would call business adoption of blockchain and business conversation around blockchain, whether that's, you know, in DC on the regulatory side, or with large firms and enterprises and, you know, your BlackRocks and your JP Morgans. And simultaneously, this like crypto native kind of cypherpunk niche like definitely still exists, but on-chain trading has been pretty decimated the last 6 or so months. And so there's this kind of weird state that we're currently in. And I'm curious, like, do you think we're kind of in like a maturation period for crypto? Does you know, does the like cypherpunk side like actually hold a lot of, you know, real like long-term community value? And how does this play out, I guess?
Yeah, I think for the institutions, some of it is actually embracing the technology, and it's like, oh, if we use blockchain, we could be more efficient here, right? And so we've talked to people where that's the case. Like, yeah, we could build this entire thing, new product that we want to build, off blockchain. Like, it doesn't need blockchain, but if we build on blockchain, it's more efficient. We can bypass this, we can bypass that. That thing already exists, and so we'll save a bunch of money, time. It'll be reliable. We don't have to worry about that stuff. So there's some of that. I think there is some institutional adoption that's just like, okay, crypto is a growing asset class. We don't want to miss out. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on in the minds of people at BlackRock, but some of it's probably that. Like, you know, there's going to be a BTC ETF. So why shouldn't we have one as well? Like, why would we just let our competitors have that? So I think that's good, but people shouldn't interpret that as like, oh, they're super excited about it. It's more like fear of missing out, FOMO, right? What was your other question?
That's
institutional
a good question.
adoption.
Yeah, and just kind of like, it seems like there's this growing disparity between the kind of forward-thinking people that were, you know, maybe in like the cypherpunk camp, or like maybe found crypto like pretty early and had this dream that, you know, one day it's going to replace the financial system, or, you know, be a new form of money. And,
Right.
you know, a lot of those people from like the trading side have kind of gotten their teeth kicked in, myself included, just, you know, being dumb in the markets for the last like 6-8 months or so. This, you know, alt season never really materialized, at least in the way that people thought it would post 2021. And so I'm just curious, like, you know, what you think basically like the future of crypto looks like. Does it become this, kind of money for the machines? Is it, something that gets super corporatized and, that's kind of, it's more of like a new feature and tool set for finance? Or is this like, full scale just across the board, adoption increases continually for the next few years across all fronts?
Yeah, I think that the cypherpunks are mentality is like, oh, we invented this. Here come these corporate interests. They're going to dilute or even destroy our values, right, and why we invented this. And we're going to end up, like, we had this chance to grow into a movement that we believe in, like, philosophically. And we want to spread this movement, and we want other people to believe in privacy and decentralization, security, censorship resistant. We want people to believe in all these sort of values, which a lot are just like essentially libertarian sort of values. And I'll probably get roasted if somebody watches that. I don't know. I'm probably misrepresenting that a little bit. So, but they have these values, and they basically want to spread these values, and blockchain is a way to spread these values. And there's just a lot of people in the world who don't trust the current systems. They don't like fiat money. They don't like that there's a board of governors of Federal Reserve with a board of governors that can raise and lower interest rates and print money and do overnight repos and all this sort of stuff, financial engineering shit to like control the money supply. They don't trust the government censorship. What was the thing in Canada? Canada like locked the truckers' bank accounts during COVID while they're protesting. They don't like. People are there's a big portion of the world that's just philosophically opposed to all this sort of stuff, and so I think that's okay. They get excited about crypto because that was supposed to be a way of exporting those values and getting everybody on the same page. And if the corporate sort of people come in and co-opt the technology and the theme, or I'm trying to think of the word, but yeah, if they come in and just take over, basically, then they're diminished back to the small sort of like portion of the population that has those values again. And so I think that's their main fear, and I think it's a perfectly reasonable fear because I don't think most people value privacy. We were selling poker last night with Venmo, like. So, our accounts on there, and you could see all the transactions with other people, dollar amounts and stuff. So, like, why don't people turn that off? It's so easy. But do people value privacy? People post all their shit to Instagram and whatever. And so, so part of it, that's the cypherpunk part. The trading part is, I think traders, whether they believe in that philosophy or not, are hoping that this becomes an asset class that's large, and they capture part of that growth, right? And it's not a given that if you own a portion of an asset class and that asset class grows, that you're going to capture part of that growth. And so I think a lot of traders will be frustrated over time because things are not going to play out like they would hope that they play out. And so I think there's a lot of stuff that people think they're just buy this all token, buy this all L1, and crypto's going to take over the world, and this all L1's going to be part of it, and I'm going to be rich. And that's just not probably true, right? There's going to be consolidation within the industry. There's going to be rise and fall of different chains. I think a good video to watch is, I wish I had saved this. I think it starts in like the 90s, and it's like, what are the best top search engine by searches, right? And there's like Yahoo and Alta Vista and Microsoft or Bing and Google, and I don't know. There was a whole set of, was it Lycos or something? There's a whole set of these people. Young people probably don't even know this. How many search engines there used to be? There was like 20 or 30, probably major search engines over the history of the internet, right? And I guess if you're a kid or a young person these days, you probably just think like, oh, it's always been Google or something, but it wasn't, right? And Yahoo was huge, and now Yahoo's basically gone as a company. And so there's this video where it has like the graph of like the number of searches, right? And the graph is like like doing this sort of stuff, right? And I think younger people, and crypto has a lot of young people in it. They don't have the concept of like industry evolution over time. You can go back and look at like probably 60s computer companies, and there's this, you could make a similar graph. I think Warren Buffett had a really good presentation on this as well, of like who were the dominant players in certain industries. And at that moment in time that they were the dominant player, everyone thought they were going to be the dominant player forever, right? Like they're just going to keep growing and growing and growing, and there's no way anyone could ever challenge them, right? And there's some good startup books written as well about like technology disruption. I can't think of the names right now, but somebody comes along, like, well, OpenAI comes along. Now people are talking to Claude probably more than they're talking to Google, right? And, maybe that's not a fair statement, but you know, it's definitely sucking away from that. And so Gemini's not that good as an AI. Hallucinates sometimes. I guess they all hallucinate, but you know, if in 10 years it's conceivable that like OpenAI is the main #1 visited website in the world, and Google's like diminished to almost nothing, right? So I think it's hard for people to imagine that, but if you actually go back and study history, like this sort of stuff happens, and the same thing's going to happen in crypto, right? The exact same thing is going to happen in crypto, and you know, you have to, if you're going to trade, you have to be mindful of that. If you're going to invest, you have to be mindful of that. If you're going to trade, if you're just a momentum trader, maybe you just less.
How do you like practically position for that as someone who's driving the strategy for Category Labs as CEO and CTO as well, having that perspective about, you know, first mover advantage is not always an advantage. And, you know, I've seen that video where, you know, the search engines are like, you know, surging in active users, and then there's a drop off, and Google kind of fluctuates around a little bit, and then like get into the first decade of the 2000s and it explodes. And then it's around, you know, as the dominant incumbent for 10, 15, 20 years. And now we're seeing an additional shakeup as well with OpenAI and Anthropic and all of these kind of like next gen incumbents. And as someone who thinks seemingly that same thing could play out in the crypto space, you obviously want Monad to get adoption and, you know, be that front runner 10, 15, 20 years from now. So how do you think about like actually positioning Monad in the best possible way from a technical standpoint, so that it does capture builders across the map on the application side, on the institutional enterprise side, and the agentic side, anywhere where crypto is going to continue to grow and get adoption over the next decade?
Yeah, I mean, there's many parts to being a successful blockchain or company, right? Company analogy is probably easier to deal with because blockchains have foundations, and labs company and tech company, like blockchains are more distributed. But you know, there's companies who had in the past the best tech but lost in the market. There's companies that had great marketing but terrible tech. You know, they probably did better, but sometimes, you know, you need all these sort of balance. There's been companies that had both, but they were mismanaged, right? They hired too many people, or they spent too much on infra, so they were financially mismanaged. So there's many ways to fail. So you know, obviously blockchain is not a company, but there's similar sort of things at play. People are making financial decisions. People are making tech decisions. People are making social decisions, social media decisions, marketing decisions. A lot of stuff happening. You know, and you want to be strong in all these sort of areas. I don't have any involvement with a lot of that, even though I post. I'm not with Foundation, so I'm not doing marketing. I'm not doing incentives. I'm not doing this sort of stuff. That's Foundation work. On a technology side, which I am responsible for, you know, it's just always trying to be. First of all, it's like having a constant stream of features, so you pipeline development. You know, there's this feature depends on this feature depends on that, and so on. You try to pipeline the development so that stuff's constantly coming out. It's big picture thinking, like trying to think ahead. I mean, anybody that just like reads Twitter and then goes, "Oh, we should implement that," and then they come over here with their dev team and implement it, like they're probably always going to be lagging. Like they're too late, right? Once people start talking about it, you're too late. And that's true with investing and trading as well. Like once it's out there, you're already late. I'm not saying you can't make some money, but you won't make as much money nearly as much money as you could have made if you had known about it before people started talking about it, right? And so there's just not a lot of like strong free alpha out in the world. So if you're trading based off like Twitter or making design decisions based off Twitter, these sorts of things, like you're lagging everyone else, and they're going to eat most of the upside. So yeah, it's tough, and you can be wrong. Like you can predict forward. The more you're predicting forward, the more variance there is going to be in the accuracy of your prediction, and the more risk you're taking. So the one way to mitigate that risk and the variance is just to have many things going at once and hoping that some of those things pay off and the other ones all fail. It's just assuming that a certain percentage of the efforts are going to fail. And this is like trading strategies, right? A HFT firm runs 1,000 trading strategies. 200 of them lose money on the day, you know, but it all balances. Like the other ones make up for it. So you can take a set of high variance processes and then aggregate them. It becomes a low variance process. So that's basically our job at Category Labs, is to do that.
And on some of the more opinionated sides of scaling and growing the Monad client, obviously, as you mentioned, just a ton of work to improve that developer experience. You also mentioned things like working on ZK with the Ethereum Foundation. And obviously, I think everyone's kind of gravitating towards privacy as one thing right now, and talking about what are the things that are going to be important in 5 years' time for blockchain developers. Thinking about things like privacy, say other things that have been super hot narrative-wise, or everything around agentic commerce and payments. How do you think about those themes that you mentioned of like what might be important 5 years down the line? How does that play into strategy on the CL side for thinking of, okay, like we need to have something going on privacy, for example, and here's a stream. What should people be looking forward to, or how are you guys thinking about these streams?
Yeah, I think once it starts to become talked about, the privacy, the agentic stuff,
Yep.
At that point, it's not, like I said, you're not ahead of anybody anymore. So now it's like something you have to do, right? And so those things have now fallen into that category. Everybody's doing it, so it's because everybody's doing it, you have to do it. Yeah, there's things in my head, and I think the kind of the test that I use is like, I think of things and then I see when it becomes public, and then like, did I predict that right? A lot of people go through this, like the invention sort of thing. Like, oh, I have this problem in my house. Wouldn't it be great if somebody made this, right? You've probably heard people say this to you. Well, I thought of that like 3 years ago. So it's that sort of like, that's a good test of like, are you ahead of things? I think we have more speculative ideas, which I'm not going to mention, obviously, but but yeah, I think agentic sort of payments and payment channels and all this stuff that people are focused on now is sort of a need to do. I also think that crypto just has a tendency to exaggerate and overmarket stuff. People are just talking about everything like it's going to change the world, and it's not. Like it's not that big of a deal, you know. And so yeah, I kind of let these other projects, like when I read on Twitter, I'm just like, it's not worth engaging with them and being like, dude, like you're way exaggerating like what the impact of this thing is, you know.
So basically what you're saying is like, if you're seeing it on Twitter, it's not really necessarily like novel or a great opportunity to go like push super hard on that thread. And you and the Category Labs team have other ideas about what might be the next meta in a year or 2 or 3, and you're gonna go and build that, but you're not gonna talk about it here on Monday in the morning.
I think once you see it hyped up on like in Twitter media, or sorry, crypto media, including Twitter and other places.
Yeah, thank you.
You're late, and it's probably exaggerated. The effect of that is exaggerated. I saw a tweet on the way in. It had like related to Hyperliquid. It had like 7,000, 8,000 likes, and I'm like, this is not the big deal that you guys think it is. Like, it's just not what it is. I think Evgeny, the Wintermute guy, posted something similar. It's just not. It's just not what, you know. His response has 20 likes. The original tweet has like 8,000 likes. It's just like, sorry, like people just don't understand. It's not the big deal that people think. So crypto Twitter and crypto marketing in general just has this sort of like everything is exaggerated, and people who don't really understand can't distinguish between that.
Yeah, I mean, I think media in general, like the things that get amplified are just going to be the hyperboles. One of the things that, actually, this is a question from the community, shout out, from Saw, who talks about payments, where this is obviously one thing where like we've actually seen just really growing adoption probably since 21, 22, that hasn't really slowed down at all, and stablecoin growth is up and to the right. A lot of blockchains say that they're good for payments. Obviously, Monad is in a lot of these conversations. We were just announced as one of the collaborators with MasterCard, for example. But what makes Monad stand out from a payments perspective, especially considering a lot of other chains are trying to get their hands into that pie, but for everyday users, but also businesses and institutions who want fast and cheap payments, what's special about Monad there?
Yeah, I mean there's a few things that are kind of minor improvements to payments right now. Obviously low gas is great. Okay, they're cheap. Okay, so that was that's the first thing. Obviously Monad is cheap, so it hits that area. There's some capabilities in Ethereum for like gas sponsorship, these delegated sort of accounts, and so it's a lot of the payments is just like workflow and compliance. Other chains have. I'll actually say something that Monad doesn't have yet, right? And it's like the ability to like pay for your gas with other sort of tokens, so that kind of becomes a hot thing. Again, I don't know how important that is. But, I wasn't even aware of this MetaMask thing where MetaMask is paying the gas, so that kind of solves the same sort of problem, right? Like just you have to have some way to pay the gas to basically put the transaction on the chain. So there's different ways of solving that. I think what we're focused on now is what I said earlier, is working with sort of the regulated entities that want to, for various reasons, technology-wise or streamlining their workflows or whatever, want to use blockchain, and how can you do that in a way that they have the control that they need to have because they're regulated, but it's still fully decentralized on chain. And so we don't have this stuff yet, but the team at Category is working on that. And we're working with some external teams as well. and hopefully we'll be able to onboard them onto that platform, sometime this year.
Love it. I mean, on the payment side, it was interesting. I had a recent conversation with Raj, who's leading payments and stablecoins at Monad Foundation, and he pointed out something that I didn't know, which is that the SWIFT system is like kind of decentralized. It's not like truly decentralized, but it was like, step in that direction at least. And blockchain is actually a pretty good, maybe the best place for payments, because you get this 24/7 nearly instant settlement. You can send money around the world, no problem. Obviously, these larger firms have to deal with the regulatory side, but it actually is just at baseline a much more efficient layer on which to settle global payments. And then from there, when you look at like, okay, well, what blockchains are actually the best position for this? My understanding is that decentralization does actually matter a good amount, because you want the thing to stay up. And if a large firm is not controlling the stack end to end, they at least want to be sure that one of their competitors isn't. And so that they're kind of on an even playing field there. And then EVM is also an advantage just because of the adoption of that standard. And we've had conversations before that the EVM is not necessarily a better VM than others, but it does have the existing network effects from Ethereum, and there's a lot of tooling that's been built out, and there's been a lot of security research that's been done. And so if I'm an institution, then I'm probably more confident building in the EVM space, because it is a bit more charted than some of these other environments. And so when you stack all that together, it does, from my lay perspective, make a pretty good case for payments on Monad.
Yeah, I think that's what I mentioned before. Businesses always sort of struggle with wanting control, right? They want to control their destiny, and so they don't want to use something that's not within their control. But at the same time, they don't want to run things as well. A lot of stuff is outsourced now. It's running on AWS, on Amazon. It's running Google Cloud, whatever, Oracle databases. Like, a lot of stuff is not. So they're kind of like in this tug of war sort of thing with like, I want to control everything. Do we, back in the day you would have it all in house, and then there's an outsourcing phase, and they're like, oh, we'll just run it all in the cloud. And so they're always like in this sort of thing. So blockchain's going to be the same sort of thing. Like you said, they don't want, like, Google wouldn't run some of their services on Amazon cloud, right? Like, that just doesn't make sense. They were going to run on their own cloud, right? And so there's going to be people, there's going to be companies who try to land grab with certain chains of their own, L2s or L1s. This is my chain, come and use it. Of course, they'll tell everyone it's not their chain, but it is their chain, sort of thing. So they're going to play all these sort of like games, right? They want to appear very decentralized, but at the same time they won't. Everyone will know secretly, hush hush, that they're not decentralized. Some like Coinbase, like, they just run Base. Like, everyone's fine with that, okay? Like, I mean, some people are not fine with that. They don't use it, but the people that use it are fine with that. Like, they just like, okay, I trust Coinbase. They're gonna run Base. Like, we trust them, whatever. Again, they'll come out and say, oh, we have this committee. I don't really buy all those sort of things. Like, you know that it's not truly, like, these people are at the bar together. They're not, really decentralized. So I think it's what you said, like, they don't want to use something that's run by competitors. So they want something that's neutral, right? You want something that's fully neutral. You want something that's going to go up, be up all the time, never go down. And you want something that other people are using, because you don't want to be the only person on that chain. So you need integrations and stuff. So yeah, I think in that aspect, decentralization does matter a lot. Monad is pretty centralized right now. It could be better, and we're going to make it better. So that's another, the core protocol sort of work is always going on. Censorship resistance. You don't want a competitor or somebody else to be able to interfere with you putting your transactions. Imagine like you're running a payment company, and you want to settle some payments on chain, but you can't land your transaction, right? Like, oh shit, like what do? You know, if it lasts 30 seconds, it's probably okay. You're not going to be happy about it. If it lasts 5 minutes or an hour, maybe a bigger deal sort of thing. So all these aspects sort of need to be built into these are all sort of core protocol changes. And so the team is working on a lot of that. So.
And you mentioned there's efforts to continue to make Monad more and more decentralized. Obviously, people can already run validators on essentially commodity hardware. Monad is far and ahead of other players. In your mind, is there, and a community member asked this as well, like a critical mass for what you actually consider true decentralization in terms of nodes, or is it more of, hey, we need to like achieve certain things on the protocol level to just like get that roadmap there? Like, what in your mind, like what is the goal for what decentralization at its end state on Monad looks like?
Yeah, there's different ways to deal with things like censorship resistance. You know, one classic way is just to have more sort of nodes and the leader schedule's rotating, and you know, you hope that like one of the leaders that's coming up is not going to censor your transaction. Another one is just privacy, like the transaction encrypted, you can't tell what it is. There still might be censorship. There still might be reasons to do censorship, for example. Like let's say you're a validator and you know there's a huge trade, like you see a Binance price move, like some asset rips, and there's a lot of liquidity on Monad, you want to take that liquidity out and make a ton of money, right? But let's say transactions on Monad are encrypted, so you can't see what other people are submitting. Well, you just censor everybody in that case. You just don't include any transactions, right? You only include your transaction. And so there's ways to sort of like deal with this stuff. So encryption solves some things like MEV, it's hard, but it doesn't solve like pure sort of censorship. So you have to deal with, we have to make changes at the core protocol to handle all these different sort of scenarios that somebody might try to take advantage of the system in their favor. And so like, yeah, adding more, going from 100 to 3,000 nodes doesn't necessarily solve that problem either, because every one of those 3,000 nodes is still incentivized to censor, right? You can just assume they're all running trading software and they want to take advantage of that trading opportunity. So yeah, there's different solutions to different aspects of the problem.
So we're 4 months into mainnet. It's end of quarter one, 2026, which means that you've been working on Monad for 4 years-ish.
Yep.
What was kind of the initial impetus for you to like actually go and, work with Keone and Eunice on like formulating effectively V1 of Monad? Like, why did you do this in the first place? And are you surprised with the state that Monad is at 4 months into mainnet, either positively or negatively?
Well, I mentioned this before. Like, I had a bunch of ideas that are for blockchains. I put together an 11-page presentation. I've tweeted about this. Google Slides, right? And that were sort of the initial deck of like Monad. It was a brown color. It wasn't purple. I was kind of a fan of brown. I'm looking for brown in here. I don't know. Even to this day, like that was, sometime in late 2021 that I put that together. It's now early 2026. Even to this day, a lot of those ideas I still don't see in the industry. So I'm kind of bullish on that because like people still haven't picked up this stuff. Maybe some people have thought about it. It's like I said earlier, like, oh yeah, I would have invented that, sort of thing. Maybe if we come out with some of this stuff. Yeah, I don't really think too much about the past. I'm just more forward looking. So I'm always looking at like, what can we do? What's innovative? What do people want? What do builders want? I mean, people don't really use chains to use chains. Like everyone knows this. Users use apps. Apps use chains, build on chains, right? Yes, there are some aspects of the chain that are great. I've mentioned this case before, right? When I first like withdrew USDC from Coinbase to Monad because I needed some USDC. Like literally in the time it took me to switch tabs, the USDC was in my account on Monad. And I'm like, holy shit, like that's fast, right? And like I never saw that with any other chain. And so there are some aspects that are chain sort of UX, like the user is like, oh, I really like this chain UX, and that's an example of that. But a lot of it is like if you're actually doing DeFi, if you're actually using the chain in a decentralized way, then it's really about the apps, right? And so a lot of what I've always thought about is how can you enable app teams to build better apps, right? And I've mentioned this before as well, where like, like the code in your MacBook right there is, probably millions of billions of lines of code in that MacBook to make that MacBook, right? And smart contracts are very simple sort of code. We have like lending protocols, we have trading protocols. I don't know, the purple guys might get mad at me if I say code in smart contracts is simple because I think their code is probably complex. But generally it's simpler relative to code running out in the wild everywhere else. And I always thought, well, how can we really expand like what people can do on the blockchain in terms of not just performance, but capability, safety, security, all these sorts of aspects. So that's a big focus. So, you have like your core protocol stuff, which is like, we talked about censorship resistance, but you also have like execution, data, how does data move, right? Everything in the world these days is data. AI is tons of data, massive amounts of data. So how do you move data? So yeah, there's a lot of work there. But yeah, I don't really look to the past. Monad's been stable. We've had no outages, knock on wood, nothing. Everything's been very good. So I'm very pleased with that. The performance has been great. There's been no real issues. I think, but yeah, just going forward, it's just more about building, technology-wise, building what stuff that people really, truly want to use and build on, and then that leads to people building good apps, and building good apps leads to users.
Was this 11-page deck the one that people talk about where I forget exactly what the saying is, but it's basically like the current implementation of Monad was only like one slide?
Yeah, only one slide, yeah.
So basically, effectively, like the initial idea for Monad materialized in this 11-page deck in 2021, and the current version, what is actually live on mainnet now and for effectively the last 4 months, is 1 out of 11 pages. There's 10 other mystery pages, and that has you really excited.
Let's just be conservative and say that like Monad is currently like 10 to 20% of what I want it to be.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work ahead. We're actively hiring, so people go to Category Labs career website and look up. A lot of people, a lot of projects in the industry are laying people off. We're trying to hire them. So we're hiring good people, and it's full steam ahead. Yeah.
Love it. Do you share Mark Andreessen's sentiment that introspection is not valuable at all? You said you don't look backwards.
Well, I think I responded to Keone or something. He tweeted about this. It was like, that's what the shower is for. Like you're in the shower for like 5 to 10 minutes. That's when you should be doing your introspection. Yeah.
And I know we've been trying to poke at some of the alpha leaks of like the roadmap. You've been pretty well press trained to not give up too much. Then I guess maybe just even as like a user of Monad yourself, as you mentioned, no outages. We've had DeFi, TVL ramping up, stablecoins ramping up. There are a ton of really solid perp dexes, money markets. What are you excited to see next out of Monad, or are there things where you're like, hey, we built this to enable developers to do XYZ cool thing, and I want to see someone come in and implement that specifically, or just broadly, what do you think the ecosystem is missing?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things that excite me. The more boring one that excites me, I don't know if that's a contradiction, but the more boring one is just like better implementation of existing sort of stuff. We talked about like being a first mover earlier. Like a lot of companies are really not first mover. They didn't think of the idea. They just did it better than the person who thought of the idea did. And so I'm always excited when there's just like this sort of incremental improvement. It's just like continuous incremental improvement on existing sort of apps, your trading apps, your dexes, I don't know, NFT marketplaces. Like it's on. Maybe other people don't get as excited about that, but I like to see like that sort of like constant improvement. I don't know the agentic AI stuff. I think the Monad Foundation did some stuff around that, but I don't really follow it. I'm actually sort of a little bit AI dumb. I'm not nearly at the skill level as the Category Labs employees are with Claude and Codex and all this sort of stuff. It's amazing what they're doing, and that excites me just because I don't really know that much about it. And so I saw there was weren't there some like AI bot things going on Monad or something. Yeah, and I didn't really have time to look into it, but yeah, that stuff seems really cool. So
Yeah, it was. You're probably talking about the multiverse hackathon.
multiverse hackathon, yeah.
Agentic hackathon, like spun that up really quickly and saw a lot of cool submissions. But what you're talking about here reminds me. I think it was a tweet that I saw recently, or maybe a podcast appearance, and I think it was the Spotify CEO who said that none of their engineers are actually writing code anymore. Is that like total clickbait? To what degree are the CL engineers like using, Codex or Claude Code to actually write code?
Yeah, I think it varies within the company. Obviously, there's people who have really fully embraced it, and people who are just using it a little bit. It's just crazy what people are doing with Claude these days. So we have like a Claude subscription. Some people have multiple tasks running. They're running loops. It constantly tells it you did a bad job, sort of thing. It's just constantly improving. I think Claude is good. I think Claude is writing a lot of our code now, and then you have to tweak it and so on and clean it up. We don't blindly accept what the AI does in any way. Obviously, because it's a blockchain and it has to be very secure, and but we are using it for security as well. It's doing audits. I think Anthropic released like code auditing tool as well, so we have that integrated. It does. GitHub has multiple models that's finding bugs. Maybe it tells you something that's garbage, but it makes you think about it. So even in that aspect, it's useful. If it's telling you garbage, it's basically the same as like asking you a question. Like, did you think about this part carefully? You're like, yeah, you're dumb. I did, but that adds to security of the platform. So I think it is adding security. A lot of the code that developers at Category Labs writes is not in the core protocol. It's test code, or it's example apps, or it's like interacting with a service, or it's like for streamlining their workflows. And so all that code has a much lower sort of standard on quality. And so AI is really good for that. It can save a lot of time. So yeah, I think it definitely has multiplier effect on our team's productivity. greater than 1. I don't know whether it's like 1.2 or 1.4. I don't know what percentage increase is, but it definitely has an effect. And I think it's pretty amazing. And if I had more time, I would love to spend more time playing with it, but I'm in meetings a lot.
Fair enough.
Doing these sorts of things 1 in the morning. So yeah, I just don't have much time as everyone else to play with it.
Well, yeah, speaking of, I know we're slightly over time here. I did want to round it out with a final question, and obviously appreciate you being here. For someone like myself who is not necessarily in what I would call the gigabrain camp of being able to anticipate what the undisclosed black box 10 pages of your original 11-page deck are, or someone like myself who's not necessarily picking up a lot of alpha before it hits the Twitter timeline, if you will. But I do have, and I think many others do as well, this belief that crypto is going to overtake the financial system and offer some form of better opportunity, especially if implemented the right way. And so what advice would you give to someone who's maybe not on the cutting edge of like research or really being able to visualize how this is going to play out over the next 5-10 years? Because I think that's a pretty niche skill. And so someone who is kind of along for the ride and hopeful to participate in that growth, whether it's as a trader or a builder or a contributor in some other fashion, what advice would you give to someone like me who's following along that says, wow, it looks like blockchain is really growing. There's obviously a lot of chains out there. There's many ways that this could play out. So, beyond like blindly picking altcoins to bet on or just going to find some random job, like how can you apply a little bit more of like critical or thoughtful strategy to positioning oneself to, be in the industry long term and benefit alongside that growth?
So are you talking from a trading investment perspective or career perspective?
I mean, like, I think it's probably hard to say in particular from a trading perspective, because then it's just like, okay, well, these are James's altcoin picks, which.
Well, I wasn't going to give you any tokens.
Yeah. No, I'm appreciative of that. I'm getting
the only thing I tweet about is semiconductors, so that's my favorite asset class.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess just like more broadly from maybe a career perspective or an opportunity perspective, like how should people be approaching crypto beyond just like, oh, I'm gonna see what's going on Twitter today, and oh, this hyperliquid tweet has 8,000 likes, and Mert's talking about Zcash again, and everyone's hyped on privacy, so this is clearly the future. Like, how do we get to the next level deeper?
I mean, this is just general life advice. I would do just more solitary sort of research. And, when I was a kid, my mom used to take me to the library, and I would grab a book off the shelf, and I would start reading something. Usually it was about computers or business or finance. And then I would read something, and I'm like, I don't understand like anything this thing is saying. And I would go grab another book, right? And so I would end up going home with like 8 books, right? Now you don't need that anymore. Now you have AI. I was talking to Grok the other day because it's the only app. It's the only, like, I have the Twitter Premium, so it's the only app on my phone. So I wouldn't necessarily choose it as the best AI, but it was the most convenient AI for me. And there's a couple things. I was having a conversation with it about cryptography one night, and so it was that same sort of thing. It reminded me of like when I was a kid and I used to read books. But I was just laying in bed with my phone like this, having this conversation. I hate using phones as well, typing, but I was too lazy to get up and get a laptop. And I was just laying in bed typing and having a conversation with it about cryptography, and I'd read what it said or reference a paper. And I'd say, well, what about this? And then we'd go like, it was like almost like talking to a teacher, right? So I think just like my life advice now is that it's just way more efficient. You don't have to go to the library. You don't have to check out the book. School's very inefficient usually, unless you have like a really good teacher in college or something. But people should spend more solitary time trying to understand things, and I think that applies to blockchain as well. does this solve this problem? Or, you know, what is going to be the challenges for society in the next 10 years? Is this, you know, the AI is probably going to say AI, but, you know, like, does this solve this problem, right? And, oh, well, who's implementing that? Okay, what are the different approaches to implementing that? And just keep going deeper. People have such short attention spans these days. You know, they want an answer in 5 seconds or 20 seconds. Like, you can't do anything meaningful in such a short amount of time. So, you know, turn off the Netflix. Love is Blind. Shut that off. Get on your AI tool. Have a conversation. Just try to dig deeper, understand. And critical thinking, I think, is a skill that's in short supply these days. And so, if you just invest a little bit of effort, it'll probably pay off dividends for you in terms of, you know, career advice or trading or investing. Maybe not so much trading, because trading is just so wild. There's so many factors that go into it. You know, Trump can attack Iran and it affects your crypto portfolio. Like, how could you have anticipated that, right? So, trading is a harder skill in terms of that. But in terms of investing, in terms of career development, it's sort of the same thing. Investing and career development are very similar. Like, where are you going to spend your time? Yeah.
Ultimately comes back to DYOR. Those are they love to say back in 2021 at least.
Yeah. Don't rely on what other people tell you. It's probably a good thing to remember. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, James, thanks very much for being here today. We'll have to run this back pretty soon as we see more and more features get rolled out, more and more of the remaining 10 pages of that original deck coming into the light, coming into production on Monad. Thanks for joining us here for the kickoff of season 2, Monad in the Morning.
Thanks for having me.
We gotta do so. We're doing we started it at kind of the end of last season, but we're gonna try to stick with it. So if you could ask the next person any question, we have no idea who the next guest is for next week. What would you want to ask that person?
I can ask any person who I don't know who it is what.
Kind of a tough one.
What's an example question somebody's asked before?
Keone asked, like, what are you solving for the world? Or if you could, I think it was like, if you could have a Neuralink and, like, there's no bottleneck and you could solve anything, what would you solve and why are you not doing that? Or it could be something really simple and dumb. I mean, it could be anything.
If you were down to your last $100, what would you do with it?
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a banger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Are we
much.
going to spin the wheel? Can we spin the wheel?
Let's spin the wheel.
Let's do it. Should we get the small wheel up first?
Yeah. Small wheel. You don't get the big wheel unless you hit the big wheel.
Oh, you got to hit the big wheel?
Yeah. It's game theory.
Are we
So,
choosing?
Yeah, let's do this for, okay, so we owe some spins, so we're going to kick it off with a spin for Mirth Mono.
Ready?
Yeah, James, take it away.
Big money.
2,500?
That's the
pretty good.
biggest one on the small wheels.
Yeah.
There you go. We're doing one more.
That's pretty good for the small wheel. Yeah, let's hit one more, then we'll cut to intermission and we'll be back. We got more spins today. This one is for From Saw.
Nice spin.
420.
420. Hey, that's a lot of gas.
All right, that's a lot of gas.
Yeah.
A lot of gas.
Yeah.
A lot of gas, for sure.
Pay for many Monad transactions.
There you go. But if you're using MetaMask, maybe save that for down the road, because it is free to transact on Monad through MetaMask right now, courtesy of MetaMask. So thank you very much. James, awesome having you here today.
Thank you so much for being here with us. We will see you very soon.
We're going to cut to a quick intermission, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Look forward to seeing you.
Give me a second.
It's the green button. Oh, we're back. Imagine that. Dark Mode Season 2. Just had James Hunsaker on. Evan and I have fresh liquid deaths. That was loud. Cheers.
You should probably go back to muting your laptop.
And thank you, Jessup. I actually did just go back to muting my laptop, and that alarm is our 10-minute countdown for our next guest, AFI Protocol, with a $50 million stablecoin vault on Monad. So pumped to chat with them in just 10 minutes. But for now, we've got a little liquid death. Arnie Palmy alert. Arnie Palmy alert.
Should we spin?
The first person to tell us which movie that's from?
Yeah, what movie is that from? With Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
Arnie Palmy alert.
What? We've definitely discussed this on previous episodes.
Yeah, because it's just a hilarious movie and a hilarious quote. The other guys. Mirth Mono.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Arnie Palmy alert. Arnie
He's
Palmy
in, like-
comes in with the
He's
tray.
in his house.
I watched this past weekend. I haven't watched a movie or a TV show in honestly a while.
Yeah.
And I watched 40-Year-Old Virgin on Saturday night, and I was just
classic.
dying laughing.
Dude, that's such a classic.
Yeah, like I don't know. They don't make movies like that anymore. We should have talked about this with James, because James loves movies.
Did you guys see the trailer for the new Scary Movie? And it's back with the Wayans brothers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they got the rights were originally, they lost the rights to it, which is why they weren't in any of them.
Uh-huh.
And then they just got it back. And so this one is, it's like all the same cast from the first ones.
Oh.
Not sure how I feel about it, but we'll see.
Well, we also have Dune.
Yeah.
Dune trailer. I think it was yesterday. I can't even keep my days straight anymore. But I think the new Dune trailer went live yesterday, and then instantly someone had like a 5,000 liker on the timeline that was like, every Dune trailer is a bottom signal, and then the
And then
market
release
rips from
is like-
there.
Yeah. I think actually Intern Bra posted something like that. That went viral.
McRib.
yeah,
He's
But
intern
he-
bra.
He did the McRib thing for Dune.
Oh,
So I think he might have been the guy that started it.
oh my gosh. Well,
So-
he's going to be so mad at me for calling that out and not
Yeah.
giving him credit because he gets so mad when people steal his McRib
Yeah.
tweet and get just bonkers numbers of likes on there.
My mic was apparently off the whole time. It's
That's
back
good.
on.
Oh, because you've got it wired in.
It's a USB-C.
Yeah, so
So
if you just touch that thing, it turns the mic off.
yep.
I don't know. I had a ton of fun with James. He is just like, dude, it is so hard to even comprehend what the remaining 10 pages of this
pages.
deck it's crazy
Yeah.
that we're 4 months into mainnet. Monad's been in development for over 4 years now.
Right.
And we're 20% of where he like actually thinks we can be
Right.
as an ecosystem and a network from like a feature perspective, from a performance perspective. And like, that's why I was trying to tease out that question at the end. That's like, well, okay, well, what should us idiots do? Because like, it's pretty hard, man, to even conceptualize what you're talking about in the remaining 10 pages of this deck. And
He was very good about not saying too much, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I can understand
respect
why,
it.
because
Yeah.
then he's going to be in an arms race with
Oh,
people
yeah.
that are building
Exactly.
out.
It's like once it's
The-
out there, then everyone's all over it.
That, and I feel like there's some people that are talkers and some people that are just doers.
100%.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And James is
Yeah.
clearly the latter. But I was trying to fish out like, hey man, I've been in crypto for about the amount of time that you've been working on Monad. And it's pretty hard to predict what a narrative is going to look like or what use cases are going to pop up or what's going to catch the bid from a trading perspective. And like, I don't know, how do you position for that? I guess ultimately the best thing that you can do, at least this is my approach, is like find the people that do have that edge, figure out through some DYOR if they are actually, putting not their money where their mouth is, but their like effort where their mouth is. Like, are they trustworthy? Like, are they going to actually go and do this thing? Not just for the next 3 months on a PR tour, but behind the scenes, heads down, building. And I think like that's ultimately not just true with crypto, but with AI and with robotics and all these emerging technologies. It's like, who's going to build the winner and what is the winner going to look like? I don't know. If you have that insight, you're certainly not sharing it on Twitter. You're probably trading on it and making a bunch of money or getting into business. But I don't know. I think it really does come back to betting on people. And I don't know. James is a guy that I can get behind.
I think it's like, it's not necessarily putting people who are putting their money where their mouth is, but it's just resources, which includes time, energy, all of it. It's a mixture of all of it. And you're kind of just observing how people are attacking this and approaching it.
I think it was super eye-opening too when he was talking about just the state of how the internet grew and search engines, and kind of having this zoom out that at the end of the day, crypto is extremely nascent industry. Bitcoin's 08, but Ethereum, smart contracts, DeFi, that's all like basically 2017. It's not even 10 years old. And DeFi itself is even less than that coming out of 2020. So I think like all of what we're so fixated on these days where, oh yeah, like Ethereum's so entrenched and then you have Solana, and then we don't really know what else matters. There's Hyperliquid out there, but everything can change and continues to change really rapidly. And having this very long-term approach, I think, is the other rare part of most crypto people are like just retail traders. And because of that, we have these super short-term kind of like market goals where you're just trying to ride up crazy volatile bull cycles. But you're face to face with someone like James who's just building every single day. Like Jessup, you're saying, there's some people who are just doers, right? Yeah. He's just out there. There's a 10-year view here to get the other 80% of the roadmap built out. I think it's very refreshing to think about things like that and to say that even with Monad, like this is day one. We've like barely gone past the starting line here. So I'm very excited to see how we can kind of like take in some of that market share, make our way up that. Yeah, one day hopefully they'll have like a layer one usage chart like those search engines, and you just see Monad
Yeah.
climbing its way up.
Well, it's funny. Like I have a friend who hit me up one time, like in the last couple months, about it's like Bitcoin over. It's already crashed. Like things are It's like yeah, but if you look at it over the course
Yeah.
of when Bitcoin was made to now, like it's still performed better than almost any other asset out there. So it's like yeah, it's just crazy how we look at this, and it's like it's this roller coaster, but when you zoom out, it's not. It's still a trajectory.
Comes back to the type of maxing that Soul Jakey's doing. You just
100%.
just chill, man. Like
I was hoping you would ask James if he was participating.
yeah. All right, let's hit a quick spin before.
Oh, we got AFI calling as well. So
Okay, all right. We'll save the spins for after the segment. Definitely excited to jump in and learn a little bit more. Let's get the headphones on for the first time in season 2. The show is on dark mode. The headphones are still on light mode.
I like it.
Yeah, me too.
Nice little contrast here.
Get that fully immersive audio. Welcome in. Thanks for joining.
Hi guys.
How are you doing? Can you hear us okay?
Yep, all good. I can hear you guys.
Amazing.
Well,
Awesome.
we're super excited to have you on today. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, we know there's a lot of super exciting things going on the AFI side, but maybe let's just start off with an introduction, your background, what you guys are building.
Yeah, sure. So, I started off primarily as an ethical hacker. This was back during my IIT days when I was pursuing my, dual degree in mathematics and computing. From there, I dropped out to start building one of the, leading risk management companies in DeFi. We built Chain Risk, where we served Compound for almost a year and a bunch of other protocols across the entire DeFi sector. Then we came up with this very interesting problem statement, which was specifically tailored to proof of reserves, right? So if we are seeing the entire landscape at this point of time, then we would see another 100 to 200 trillion dollars of real world asset that would come to be tokenized to find yield in DeFi. Right. And whenever this gets, integrated across DeFi, you would need to convince two people. One would be the risk managers who are going to list these assets across different markets, right? Or the curators across markets like Morpho. And the second would be really the Oracle providers. These guys would be the people who would be powering the price feeds. Now, both of these people essentially need a data source to independently verify that there have been enough reserves that is backing a given asset at any given point of time. So that's what we started off with. We have built out a cryptographic proof of reserve network where we generate multiple cryptographic proofs for the reserves. And then we go one step further, for which we are working with Monad at this point of time, is something called proof of reserve vaults. Right? And what proof of reserve vaults do is they go to the 4626 level and integrate the minting limits or reserves within the vault itself, which means that a collapse like XUSD cannot happen anymore because now the 4626 is reserve compliant. So that's basically us. And happy to delve into what we are doing exactly with Monad right now.
Yeah, let's do it. Why leave the viewers on the edge of their seat? Yeah, tell us a little bit about the stablecoin vault and what's going on with Monad specifically.
Yeah, sure. So I think why we primarily chose Monad is a lot of really strong protocols are actually coming here with real value. Unlike a bunch of other chains that we have alternatives to go to. So that's why we chose Monad. The second is there's a real value that the Monad ecosystem team has been giving us and pushing us for doing things in the RWA space, right? And I think very few chains are actually focusing on that side of things. So that's where we launched our flagship proof of reserve vault along with Multiply, where we have deployed a $50 million stablecoin vault in association with them. This is largely backed by a series of reserves. Like, it is backed by gold, it is backed by real estate, it is backed by some of the largest family offices in the UAE. It is also backed by some of the largest mines in the Latin America. Right, so that's kind of the composition of underlying assets against which a stablecoin has been issued. Now, the next step for us is to go ahead and integrate this stablecoin across multiple markets like Morpho, Carvins, so on and so forth, so as to give these institutions anywhere between 5 to 7% healthy yield. But here's the new story, that we are also coming up with a couple of retail vaults with, again, some of the largest players in the market, largest stablecoin issuers in the market, where anybody can basically come in and deploy into these vaults as a part of the AFI cross Monad ecosystem. And then they can get a share of that yield as well.
Super exciting. And you talked about the different types of RWAs and the different types of providers that you're working with. Everyone from stablecoin issuers to, hopefully it sounds like even more exotic or longer tail assets. What are the RWAs that you've been most excited to work with so far, and where do you think the future of RWAs are? What types of assets do you think you guys will end up supporting in the future that might not be here right now?
So our goal as a company is to basically bring in maximum of those assets which were illiquid, right? So, if you think about largely the tokenized gold market at this point of time, then that is still very, very liquid, right? So if you think about like XAUT by Tether or Paxos Gold, right? Then those assets are essentially liquidatable, which means that if you are essentially minting somewhat of a stable coin against it, then it's instantaneously integrable into DeFi, right? So what happens is, you have a bunch of these baskets of not so liquid assets, which would essentially need to get integrated into DeFi. And the way to do it is you first tokenize these assets. So think of a mine, right? Somewhere sitting in some part of the world, right? And you tokenize it, but how do you make it liquid, right? And this is like very, very exotic asset. So I think we are going to go step by step. We are going to choose more liquid assets first, where, the more the liquid the asset is, the more we can actually show more growth on the side of the protocol, on the side of the chain, because that's where people are able to actually get the yield. But the real problem, or the large visionary problem to solve over here is, there's a bunch of like idle asset across the world. For example, think of a mine, right? So let's say a mine in Latin America. They, for example, want to get their working capital. Right. So what's the method at this point of time? You have to sign a bunch of documentations with, let's say, JP Morgan, get your deal signed and have some interest rate that you need to pay to them. And that acts as your working capital. But what if, you can tokenize that mine and you get anywhere between 6 to 7% via DeFi, and that essentially fulfills your working capital requirement. And that would be the real game changer in the market at the end of the day. But what needs to be protected is a layer of fabrication which will actually build this, which is actually proof of reserve as an infrastructure.
Yeah, and you guys are, so for example, in the Monad Vault, you guys are working with Multiply on that. How did that relationship come about? Obviously the value prop here makes a ton of sense. How did you guys bring that forward with them, and how have the partnerships with RWA asset issuers, how did that begin?
Yeah, sure. So I think this process actually began somewhere around 5 months back. This is dating back to the October 25 crash in DeFi that we saw across multiple protocols, right? So there was Elixir, there was the XUSD stream financing happening. And then, so Sharan, the CEO of Multiply, has been a really good mentor of mine. And we were kind of, that day we were sitting together and we were thinking of what really happened, because like some billions of dollars got wiped out of DeFi on a single day, right? And that's where we came across this great problem statement that, in case of something like a stream finance or something like an yield bearing vault, you can still probably have a verification proof at the back, right? Because most of the capital is on chain. And for capital which is off chain, you already have for strategies that are running on, let's say, centralized exchanges, you can basically give like attestation reports. But now think of something where the assets are not only off chain, but they are also offline. And when you go to integrate these assets into DeFi, this becomes the next, sort of eureka moment for the world where, if at any point of time, you as a user invested your capital into this stable coin, which you suddenly get to know isn't backed by anything, you are screwed. Right? And then something like that could happen where, if this stablecoin is, let's say, now listed on Morpho. So this stablecoin got depegged because this doesn't have any reserves. But against that stablecoin, which right now the oracles are not reflecting, I can go ahead and borrow some liquidity from Morpho, which would then lead Morpho into a bad debt because my collateral asset is not backed. Right? And Morpho doesn't realize this in real time. And that's why proof of reserve is the main thing that we focused on. And from there, we worked with Multiply on multiple things. And we are also coming up with a bunch of other vaults with Multiply. Some of them are going to be on Monad as well. So yeah, super excited for that. The Monad team has been super supportive, Gmonad.
Love to hear it, Gmonad for sure. Curious, as someone who's kind of building in the RWA space day in and day out, where do you think we are in terms of like the ultimate end state of there's just a ton of RWAs actually on chain? What inning are we in? How does this play out over the next couple years? Who are ultimately the biggest players in the space? And how does that affect the overall chain landscape? Which chains are best positioned to capture this growth and activity?
I think, so one of the problems that has natively been with a lot of DeFi protocols or, a bunch of yield bearing assets is that most of them have been highly airdrop and incentive driven. Now, this was a moment. So, so we come from that cypherpunk age in crypto, right? Where a bunch of things used to happen just native DeFi. We were on anons. We did not give like anything about any of the like KYC, KYB. But now, we are entering into a world where, suddenly large institutions have started gathering crypto, right? And this is, I think, a pivotal shift because these institutions do not want 10% of your airdrop. They want real yield, right? Coming from like a legitimate lending activity, right? So let's say one of the biggest things that is becoming big right now is RWA backed lending, right? I think some of the largest protocols in the market are built around this thing at this point of time. For example, people like Centrifuge, right? They are like doing a phenomenal job at this where they are giving real world yield back to the investors. And the underlying is crypto. So these investors, they don't even know that the underlying technology is blockchain and they're doing all of that thing on this, right? A common shopkeeper who would need like lending against his like balance sheets, he doesn't need to know that all of this is on crypto. He just needs to know that, I am getting paid against my invoices, which I need to give back at a given point of time, right? And this is the interesting era that we are sitting on right now. So we are like, at least from like the DeFi side of stuff, we are pretty early, right? So if you see on DeFi Llama right now, approximately $22 billion of tokenized real world assets are there right now, out of which, about 1% is in DeFi roughly, right? Which is like very less. Now that's where we fit in, right? So we are essentially the bridge between somewhere like a TradFi world and the DeFi world where there would be a bunch of assets which are going to be tokenized, but for what purpose? You would essentially want yield. And the best way to get permissionless yield in the market is proven to be DeFi. Now, I know there could be like a lot of arguments around how much amount of yield have all of people made across DeFi. But I think one of the major things would be which ecosystem focuses on it the earliest. So I think Monad is best positioned from that perspective to be one of the early movers in this space. And that's why we have chosen Monad as well. I think, we've got phenomenal support from the entire team till date. And yeah, I think the way ahead is, there would be some 3-4 top chains in the market who would be handling all the RWA, TVL across the world. And I think Monad would be leading that charge.
Yeah, appreciate that, and I think the vision resonates across a lot of different areas. I think like I first started hearing the proof of reserve conversation post that 2022 rehypothecation. Obviously, everything going on with like Celsius, 3 Arrows, FTX, etc. And now it seems like RWAs are so relevant from the perspective that stablecoin issuance keeps going up and to the right. And we need more sources of yield that are just beyond traditional line borrow from crypto users. And as you mentioned, there's this huge gap between kind of these like vaults that TradFi institutions are creating, but then there's no actual way to access that. I guess kind of to Danny's part of his question there is like, maybe we are in like inning 2 or 3 right now. What does inning 9 look like? How much bigger does the TAM on RWAs get in crypto?
I think that's where most of the wealthiest of the world people are sitting on. That is the RWAs. So I think from that perspective, we can just imagine the number of, largely the number on which the entire world is sitting on in terms of capital. So if you think about the entire world, the world is sitting on $100 trillion of real estate itself, right? And then a bunch of other assets that are backing all of this. So if you think about like the largest of the largest people in the world to people in India, right? So like if I talk about India, India is one of the largest commercial gold holders, right? So ornaments, gold ornaments in marriages across India is one of the things, right? So we are the people our parents hoard gold, right? And that is sitting in some of our Indian bank in some vault lying idle. And if we just go to our parents and say that, hey, we have an innovative way to basically, not so that you do not lose the custody of your gold, but you can go ahead and get 6 to 7% of interest on that so that you can pay off a lot of loans, which you usually pay off from your salaries, right? So that's the world where we are headed to. Now, if you think about size, I think like 10 years from now, we are speaking of anywhere between a 50 to $100 trillion size, but at present to where we see at 2030, we would be sitting at around $10 trillion of assets, which is being tokenized. But what really matters is to actually make this effective in DeFi, because if you're not able to make this effective in DeFi, it really doesn't make sense. I mean, in case of real estate, you have like rental yield, which is like a real world yield again, which you can get on your tokenized real world asset, right? But in case of most of the tokenized asset, there is no yield that you're getting on top of it. So DeFi has to be the like first way or the native way to get yield on that capital. And we are seeing that happening or starting off, like it started off like 2 years back as the BlackRock Biddle move across the world and the T-bill move across the world that America has been doing from a long time. And now this is going way ahead. So T-bills are not just the thing people are focusing into. They are actually expanding across multiple things.
Interesting. This is super cool perspective as someone who's kind of focused on this day in and day out. So I'm sure the listeners are enjoying as much as I am, or the viewers, I should say. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely something we'll have to run back. As we get further into 2026 and we see more and more of this materializing and progressing. And certainly, excited about the concerted effort from the Monad side here at the foundation. Certainly a lot of thought being put into both DeFi and the RWA space and beyond, of course. But these are definitely some promising areas. We recently had Joanita Titan join the team as the Director of Institutional Growth. And so this is an area that she's focused on very, very acutely. And we'll have to bring her on the show as well sometime soon to talk about that vertical in more detail. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, there's a lot of excitement for RWAs and activating this asset class in DeFi. And I certainly agree. It seems we're at the very early stages of this actually playing out. So would love to revisit this in a month or two as we see more and more continued progress. But this $50 million stablecoin vault is already live on Monad, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that is absolutely live, and we have a couple of other vaults going live by the next like 4 weeks to 8 weeks. So I would say like the entire community to stay tuned for that, because I think that would essentially drive a lot of retail capital. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it. Like as we say, like it is for the first time that like Y Combinator has given an RFP for the first time ever for stablecoins and RWAs. Now, it shows that the global world is recognizing for the first time that, DeFi can actually be one of the largest things in the world. But at the same time, while, everybody else is speaking about RWAs, and this is the like meta and the narratives in the market, this also makes it very, very crucial for teams like us, because like it's a narrative, which means that probably a bunch of things in this field would come along, but it also makes it more difficult for us, because we would be held more accountable against anything that we are doing in the market. And at the end of the day, it's people's money. Like I started my life from ethical hacking to risk management across DeFi, and now handling like one of the most vital things, which is proof of reserve for real world assets. I can tell from that perspective that we really need to focus on consumers. We really need to focus on product. We really need to focus on revenue. And at the same time, we need to focus on doing all the other stuff that we keep on doing across like the entire industry. So it's for the first time, I think Monad has been one of the greatest motivators. The team has been greatly motivating. Pareen especially has been greatly motivating to us in terms of telling us, go and get the PMF in the market. And we are headed towards that. So happy to do it with Monad.
100%.
Love it.
And the PMF is here and it continues to grow. You can find on AFI protocols at XYZ. Users should go on there, check out the $50 million stablecoin vault on Monad. But then also congratulations on already verifying $1.2 billion worth of assets and a TVL of over $200 million already. Congrats on all the growth and success, and we're really excited to continue working together, and we'll have to run it back again soon. Thank you so much for coming on.
G Monad.
Monad.
Awesome. That was a super cool perspective. The RWA space is definitely one that doesn't get a ton of conversation on CT, but it is quite exciting at the end of the day. Like, this is where a lot of the, I think, future capital in crypto, in DeFi is going to come from. And in a sense, it's kind of similar to, why is Monad good for payments? Well, it's just a better, more efficient infrastructure layer that these things can be built on. And, that's not to say that other performant chains aren't going to, come out and look to capture that volume and those flows as well. But, it's an exciting time overall, and it does offer some perspective as to like, okay, if crypto is going to overtake the financial system, what percentage of capital is already in the system? Well, it's very little.
100%. Yeah, and it's one of the things we were talking about, where maybe these aren't like the sexiest areas for people who are just on chain trying to buy the newest AI agent coin. But again, these are the areas where crypto is winning on and will continue to do so with the growth of stablecoins. And I think this is what Monad is so focused on with payments. You have Raj and the team who are going out there, bringing all of these major payment providers on board, partnerships and collaborations with teams like MasterCard that I think was announced yesterday. That was extremely cool. And then on the other side of bringing all these stablecoin issuers and providers on chain, you need ways for people who have all these stablecoins to earn yield from it. And again, like Morpho and Aave and these places are a wonderful place to start, and we'll continue growing that DeFi native pool. But I think where we unlock trillions of dollars more in value is bringing all of these TradFi assets and making them composable with DeFi. I think part of the pitch of Monad is creating that accessibility for both payments, institutions, having that enterprise level of value prop, and then also bringing that to a traditional retail user because the chain is extremely fast. There's a lot of volume and there's a lot of liquidity. And I kind of think about Monad as that end game that's extremely professional, high performant DeFi. You have people like James coming on talking about, well, we don't need to reinvent the wheel and everything, but because of the unlocks with Monad performance, you can get that step function level upgrade already. And then you pair that together with these institutional assets and give that all for normal users to trade and transact on. So you kind of have everything, and that's the beauty of what we're building here. It's my Monad shill for the day.
yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, let's get the wheel going. We've got some people to spin for. I'm gonna.
While you guys are getting the wheel, I want to know, what would you do if you're down to your last $100?
What would I do?
That's such a good question.
That is a good question.
I'm curious. What would you guys do in chat? What would you do if you were down?
I want to see
to
what
your
the
last
chat has.
$100?
Yeah, I mean I'll think about it for.
Does that mean, like, do I still have my phone? Do I still have my computer?
Presumably,
Yeah,
let's
you can load it up to bro.fun and just
That's
hit those
not what
cups.
I'm doing. I'm probably getting either a Claude or a ChatGPT subscription for a month.
Yeah.
And some rice and some chicken.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Okay. So let's assume that you have somewhere to live,
you have the
some food for the next week or so at least,
Maslow's hierarchy of needs are pretty.
Yeah. Okay, so just effectively you have $100 bill in liquid capital. I think you're probably right. You probably have to get a Claude subscription, and then I think you probably one of the quickest things that you can do to make money if you're a little bit savvy is you go to local brick and mortars and you talk to the owner and you say what is the biggest pain point or bottleneck for your business to make money? And this is going to be stuff like the local bagel shop, or the guy who has a pressure washing business down the block, or he's sealing driveways or mowing lawns, and you figure out how you can help use these tools to optimize their their business, their inbound, their scheduling, their what have you. And people are AI aware but pretty clueless in terms of how to use this stuff. And so I think that's probably the promising angle. Now, it's not necessarily the most original idea because there's been a bunch of threads on Twitter that's I know 100 people that started doing this last week, so you better jump on it now, otherwise the opportunity isn't going to exist. And so you do have to get crafty and figure out how you're going to be able to provide that value. But yeah, I mean,
honestly, I think what I would do is either a Claude or ChatGPT subscription and then a Higgsfield subscription, and I would go in making a ton of UGC content or just any type of content that it is just you're gonna be able to hit views on. You literally could just optimize for the highest potential of views.
Couple good comments in the chat. King of the North OG says, I embody being down to the last $100. Well, maybe you will run this experiment in practice and let us know how it turns out.
Make a YouTube video about it.
Yeah, there you go. Don't necessarily take our advice too seriously. We're just kind of spitballing here. Mirth Mono says, this is This is you on your next video segment, Danny, going door to door trying to explain and sell AI. That would be pretty funny. Mirth Mono also says we're going straight into OnlyFans selling feet pics.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's probably what I would do if I had $0. But hey, you know,
I'm just gonna hit the niche and go like feet pics of ultra athletes after runs.
Oh man.
You gotta go niche. You gotta.
Chaos Walker says he would get a job. Well, fair enough. Yeah. That's also a viable path. Nonetheless, we've got a wheel to spin and people to spin it for. I think we owe Celestial Natty a spin from last week as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and hammer that for you, Celestial Natty. Let's see what we got.
What a spin.
42.
42. Hey. Better than 0. Celestial Natty, 42 Mon. Coming your way. Get yourself some gas. Alrighty, I think we've got another one for From Saw. Now we're into today's question. From Saw. What do we got?
Oh, so close to a big wheel, but 1,143 is still pretty good.
143, great number. Chain ID, I love you.
1,143.
Yeah, but that didn't fit my narrative.
Where are we at?
All right, we are on to Liber 3559.
Let's see a big wheel for season 2. 6, 7.
6. Don't do it. Don't
Not
do
even-
it.
is
Don't
it
do
over?
it. It's over. It's if we're asking that question as effectively
officially-
boomers, we're cooked. Turn that
But
camera
have you
off.
have you guys seen those videos? It's like two kids. It's like some American kid, and he's like visiting in Germany or something, and he sees this German kid across the square, and then they just look at each other, and it's like,
Wait, really?
yeah.
haven't
It's like a
seen that.
cross-cultural thing. You can do this in like Japan. There's a video. There's like a Korea video, and just like these two kids see each other on the street, and they just start screaming 6, 7 at each other.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. So maybe it's like
It's transcended culture.
no, it transcended culture. But maybe that also means like it's probably for like the 10-year-olds now.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
gotten there and probably shouldn't be doing it anymore, but
All right, let's do 2 more spins, and then I have a topic. 2 more spins. Mirth Mono up again. I mean, you can complain that we always spin for Mirth Mono, but Mirth Mono brings the good questions, and we ask him live on the show. So,
But there
Mirth
is
Mono.
no complaint department that exists for Monad in the morning.
this is a
So
meritocracy. If you
the guy that made the rules left. So
Yeah, true. All right, Mirth Mono.
big wheel. Is that right? Oh no. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big wheel
it's a big wheel.
for Mirth Mono at long last.
Big
This
wheel
could,
for
this
the
could
big
very well
dog.
be
That's-
your first big wheel. Mirth Mono, appreciate you tuning
All
in
right.
every week.
You got to bring that one over there though.
All right.
I'll switch up the camera for.
Should I go in the James seat?
You can just bring it.
In front of the camera.
Yeah, like right there. There you go.
Oh.
Slight turn. It's in this camera right here.
Oh, what's up? Slight turn. Free from the counter. Ready?
Oh wait, we need to publish it. There we go. Now you're there. What did you do?
Whoa, this thing's squeaking.
Whoa. It's about to fall.
3,000.
Not bad.
Very, very solid.
That's a good.
It almost fell apart.
Almost fell apart.
Yeah.
But it
That's
didn't.
like that's a lot of gas. That's more than your last $100. Now we can see what Mirth Mono would do with 3,000 Mon, armed and dangerous.
King of the North is on fire today. Better than a kick in the teeth. I agree with you. 3,000 Mon is
He picks incoming.
objectively better than a
Yeah.
kick in the teeth.
Yeah, now Mirth Mono doesn't need to send in heat picks.
All right.
What is
let's-
inside Danny's pocket?
Things. Things. I got things in my pocket. I got a cell phone. I've got.
There's a prediction market on it right now, so that's what. No.
I've got lubricating eye drops to keep my to keep my eyes nice and.
How often do you like
and wet? I have really dry eyes. It's super
Yeah.
annoying, and so
Are they like prescription?
No,
Or is
no,
this,
these
like,
are
over the counter.
These are over the counter, Avisia, preservative free. I'll
That'd be
actually,
solid.
you know what I'm gonna do a live demo. How's this?
Yeah.
All right, so you take the apparatus and you flip it upside down. You get close to the corner. I just
think you
totally missed.
missed it.
This is a terrible live demo. Just
Is
pretend.
this where I end it?
No, I'm not. I haven't concluded the demo yet. So we got one in the right eye, one in the left eye,
Nice.
and you just let it wash over you.
Sometimes it's like taking a shower in a way. You're like, it's like refreshing.
Yeah, it's a shower for the eyes.
Shower for the
It's-
eyes.
So yeah, that's good. And we got the 3 milligram pepperonis.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Can't skip that, at least personally. Although don't necessarily recommend that. Let's see. We got an IO BNAD upcoming. IO BNAD. This spins for you.
690.
690. 690.
Respectable. Very respectable.
Very respectable. Indeed. All right, that's pretty good. I had a topic that's relatively random, and I haven't talked to Keone about this, but Keone has been really creatine maxing on the
So
timeline
creatine
lately.
filled. Yes.
And it was actually funny because he tweeted, I don't know, maybe a week or two ago that he's like expecting creatine to become this really hot narrative this
Yeah.
year. And I'm like, that's like pretty interesting. I think creatine's already pretty popular. And I think someone else commented that, and then he responded like turbo normie wave of creatine adoption. And then the next day, I don't know if this was coincidental. I don't know if Keone kicked off this trend or what, but the next day there were all these posts on Twitter about creatine. Creatine's trending. And since then, I've seen a ton of just highly engaged creatine threads.
Do you think that's your algorithm, or do you think it was like literally all just?
That's actually a good point as well, but I had never really seen it before, and that's
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know.
sure there's something to it. Like we would probably look up some Google search trends here, but it's like this overlap with health optimization, peptides, looks maxing, Brian Johnson longevity stuff that, you know, it's proven. It's one of the most like proven things. You know, it's like if you're out there lifting weights, get yourself some whey protein and some creatine.
I've been on the creatine game for kind of a while.
Do you take
now.
it every day?
Probably 5 days a week.
Do you do like the powder or like a pill, or what is it?
I do the monohydrate,
Yeah.
5 grams a day, probably 5 days a week on average. Just throw it in my water in the
Yeah.
morning, and
How many milligrams?
5 grams.
Yeah.
5,000
Five,
milligrams.
5 grams.
I don't know. Like, there's the idea that you can load it, and you
Yeah.
know,
Well-
people are saying like the cognitive effects like really kick in like 10 to 20 grams, and I'm not like, you know, I'm not really looking to push the limits here and like make myself a research study. So I'll
Yeah.
stick with like the
Then
recommended.
the water retention thing, and then like
Yeah, you definitely want to hydrate.
you gotta
if you're-
hydrate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, my baseline, I probably drink.
Yeah, you drink a ridiculous amount of
Yeah,
water.
I'm
though.
probably like between 1 and 2 gallons a day on average.
Yeah.
In
That's
terms
very
of water consumption. That is actually why we introduced the intermission on this show, because I can't make it that long. So that's yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if we get this turbo normie creatine wave. It was like a super polarizing thing for a while. There was a lot of like
But I guess what do you consider normie in that sense? Because like people have been using it's almost more, it's like now a wave with crypto. The crypto people and tech people are the normies in this instance, because I would say like way
The
more.
fitness crowd is already.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the fitness crowd's all over it, obviously, and that was like the primary application that people were talking about around creatine for the past 30 years, basically. And more recently, you have probably Andrew Huberman and other people that are more focused on like probably I think Brian Johnson as well, like on like mental acuity, talking about the
I didn't know
It also
cognitive.
it also has a like for sleep deprivation, it can like counterbalance, but it's not long term. Like you don't want to, but in a short term setting, like it can counterbalance sleep deprivation over a single night.
So I think Turbo Normie in Keone's context is like, does this get talked about as much as like peptides
have been.
and
Right.
some of these like GLP drugs?
But
and,
I think
like vitamins.
Yeah.
Like I made like the way I think about it is the people that knew about creatine growing up or whatever. It's like you're starting to like lift weights and you're like trying to see what supplements you should take. You go to your GNC and the guy's like, yeah, creatine's great, right? And you're just trying to get yoked. And now it seems like it's like, oh, there are these mental benefits to it, and it's like you're almost like your 1-a-day vitamin. Take your multivitamin.
Yeah.
Take your creatine in the morning.
and creatine though, like in order to be effective, you have to take it repeatedly,
Yeah,
consistently.
exactly.
It's
Well,
not
that's
a
what Danny was saying, like they even say you can like load in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but either way, you got to build up that consistency and that what is it like the
It-
creatine reserve in your body?
yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, it's one of the most studied supplements
Yes.
in existence. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Go take your creatine.
I mean,
Well,
I used to
we're
work.
not recommending anything.
I'm not a doctor.
I mean, speaking of like some of the more like short. Speaking of some of the more like.
NHA, no health advice.
There's no real advice on this show.
Do not listen to
period.
us.
Period. Yeah, listen to us for entertainment.
Yeah.
Listen to our guests.
There you go.
But
There
don't
you go.
listen to us. That would be crazy.
Yeah.
No, it kind of reminds me, there's all these like, shortcuts, and shortcuts apply to anything. One of my buddies in high school was like, oh, I just want to get yoked. And he just totally skipped over creatine entirely. And he just started ordering SARMs on the internet.
serious?
Yeah. And he probably put on like 30 pounds of muscle in a month. It
Yeah.
was insane. I've never seen arms
Where do you
that
even
big.
get it?
He like went to some California research lab and like ordered it, and it was like not for human consumption labeling on the box. It was
Yeah.
like, this is for testing
Yeah,
on, like
That's what
mice.
the peptides are like now. Because they send it. It's like you go to a Discord and it's like some guy who represents a Chinese pharmaceutical factory, and they'll send it to you, but it's marked like for research purposes only.
Okay, but that's not the only way to get peptides.
But that's like the way that I hear.
I've gotten peptides from an actual doctor.
But I also,
Allegedly.
I think if you want to escape the markup too on a lot of
Well,
these
yeah, they're
places,
not
yeah.
cheap. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like $400 a month for BPC
Yeah,
157 and
this
TD
is like,
500.
hey, like or like even Ozempic, right? It's like, yeah, if your
Well,
insurance
that's
isn't covering
like
it,
900.
yeah, and it's gonna be $1,000 a
$1,200.
month.
Yeah.
You can get it from this guy on Discord, and it's $15 a month.
But that to me seems so sketchy. Like,
Oh, of
I would,
course, yeah.
I like,
I'm not endorsing this, by the way.
yeah, like that would be crazy. You're just like $15 a month, or from a pharmacy.
But I have
that-
heard it works. I've
I'm
heard the
sure
side
it
effects
works.
are brutal, but it works.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like, oh, you want the brutal side effects and the totally unstudied long term whatever. I don't know. It's
I mean, if it's just like anything, you're like risking anything you put in your body. You're risking it being cut from the source based off of profit.
but everything is it's broader than peptides and creatine and crypto for sure. It's everything right now is all about like the shortcut. Like, what can I put the least amount of effort into, the least amount of money for the maximum benefit? And we're increasingly moving in that direction. It's like this whole like hyper gambleification, hyper gamblingfication of society, which is just like, I think there's some false hoods there, where it's like we're getting fed this idea that the clock is ticking, like everything's accelerating. You have to take a shortcut. You have to gamble your way into financial success. And that's just not really true. And then you talk to somebody who actually is like, the founder of a large company like Category Labs, for in James's case, who we had on the show obviously today. And he's like, you just can't build something impactful in 1 to 2 months. And that really is quite true. It's the long-term games with long-term people and not taking these shortcuts. And sure, there's optimizations you can make along the way, and maybe creatine is one of those optimizations for you personally. But you really start to get into like, okay, let me make massive progress that's really impossible in a month, and we're just gonna take some shortcut and make it happen. That just doesn't really work.
Have you ever heard of the old saying? It's like, if you try to cut corners, you end up creating two. And it's like, if you have a piece of paper and you cut off the corner, you now have two corners. And so it's just like, sometimes when you cut the corner, you're now gonna just be stuck with two problems instead of one.
One of the people that's most inspiring to me right now is actually somebody that I don't know directly. I just see them in New York in the mornings on the corner of one of the streets that's relatively
Where's
close
this
by
going?
here. Well, I'll tell you. So one of the people that's most inspiring to me right now, literally see them almost every morning on a local street corner. It's this lady who's just selling food. And she has like, it's not even a food truck. It's like a cart.
Is
basically.
it the
Yeah.
mangoes and
No, not like mangoes and stuff, but it's like hot food. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is. It's a couple blocks away from
never
here.
tried it?
And no, I haven't tried it. I was tempted to
I feel like
one
they'd
morning.
be really good.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure. But the thing is, like, this lady is out there in the pouring rain, in the freezing cold, in the snow, in the sleet, always like positive. Like, I can overhear her talking to customers. She has a good attitude, and she's out there regardless of what the weather is, just like working hard to do this simple thing day in and day out. Simple in principle, complex in practice. Like, it's huge effort. She's probably leaving her family very early in the morning, like preparing the hot elements of the food, like bringing it out onto the corner, setting up the stand, like interfacing with customers, like shivering cold, pouring rain. Like, that is like pretty inspiring to me, and it definitely motivates me to like work very hard and work very consistently at what I'm doing. Like, going out there for one morning would be fine, and if it was cold, I'd be like, wow, this is cold, like this is an ordeal. But every day, 365, regardless, rain or shine, cold, hot, humid, whatever, like just being out there is that's the recipe, and it seems like she's doing decently. So
Yeah, the hardship, the friction, these are the things that make us human, right? Like, these are the things that give us life. And it's almost, hey, if you could just take this happiness thing and you optimize your entire life away with AI, everything's gonna be great. But then you lose all the special meaning that actually makes life worthwhile.
It's like playing a video game. Like,
Yeah.
as soon as you have the cheats, it's no longer fun.
Yeah, exactly.
exactly. And in this case, like, do the cheats actually exist? Like, are there
You're gonna get banned for using them.
well, yeah. But like, is there actually a cheat code to life? Like, probably not. Like, the people that are ultimately the most successful on paper are often the unhappiest people. And so then it's like, well, what actually is your definition of success? And the ultimate parallel to technology or crypto and just like building innovative things is seemingly a recipe for a happy and successful life is to fall in love with solving hard problems and to fall in love with the process and the ultimate journey, because if you look at like a story, a book that people want to read, or a story that people want to watch on a TV show or a movie, like you have the beginning and the end as like very kind of short moments, and the end is this like resolution of everything, and that is like typically the successful outcome, or like the state that people are happy in. But 95% of that movie is going to be struggle, uncertainty, just a battle to try and get to this state. And if you apply that to life and say like, hey, I don't know where this is going. I don't know if I'll ultimately be successful. I don't know if I'll ultimately be happy, but I'm going to fall in love with making an impact in an area that I think is interesting or care about. Like, that probably is the recipe, because you can't stop the fact that you're getting older, and you can't stop the fact that at some point your friends and family and people around you will die, and tragedy is ultimately inevitable. And if you're trying to get to this perfect outcome, it's not really ultimately very valuable. I think that's why looks maxing is the stupidest thing that you could possibly do. It's like, you are optimizing for something that is going to, by the time you hit 25 or 30, degrade for the rest of your life, and you're just playing catch up to get to this ideal state that you can never actually achieve.
Especially because like some of that is opposite of like health maxing. It's just purely aesthetic. And so if you're like, all right, I'm gonna optimize for pure aesthetic, and yeah, like what?
Right, exactly. Like, you're actually making the degradation worse. So it becomes increasingly harder and harder to looks max, because you're making these long-term trade-offs to look good right now, but you're still trying to continually optimize that. So it is like an uphill battle both ways. You're just perpetually rolling the ball up the hill, or rolling the stone up the hill, Sisyphus style. And I don't know, I think it's an easy trap to fall into. You look at like, clavicular capturing so much attention and so many clicks, and it's like, is this really the thing? Like, does this guy really know what the recipe is to be successful 20, and to be happy? Like,
it's like, come on, brother.
No idea.
Yeah, your brain isn't even developed yet.
And he's probably like, doing some of this, or a lot of it, maybe all of it, just for show. And so it's like, man, don't fall into that.
Yeah, I mean, like, just be a good person maxing. Like,
yeah, can we do that?
Yeah,
that
should be top.
I don't know, but like all these things, it kind of probably feels like disconnected and super tangential, but ultimately it does come back to why I'm excited about Monad, because like the founders, Keone, James, Eunice, understand this. Like, they are in love with the process. They want to solve the hard problems. James is presumably pretty excited that he's only 20% of the way through his longer term roadmap. Why? Because he knows that building the thing and actually fighting the battles and struggling and trying to figure things out and solve the problems in the best way possible is ultimately the fun part. And sure, I would imagine that, if this plays out the way that he believes it will, it'll be pretty gratifying in 10, 15 years to look back and say like, man, we did it. But you got to enjoy those 10 to 15 years of actually doing the thing as well.
Yeah.
What do you think, chat?
Well,
am I crazy? Definitely, but maybe part of that is true.
Celestial Natty, I think you're referring to Brian Johnson, not Brian Thompson. And I would not compare Brian Johnson and clavicular at all. Brian Johnson is a very wealthy, successful guy who has dumped a ton of money into actual research on how to to reduce his age.
Brian Thompson was the CEO of United Healthcare, who was
Oh.
unfortunately assassinated. So I don't know actually what's rooted in that question, but Celestial Natty did say anything can happen to you. What about Brian Thompson? And right, like exactly, like okay, you can. It's crazy. It's unfortunate. I certainly hope it doesn't happen to me or you or anyone that we know or anyone in general. But yes, you can just walk into tragedy one day at 6 a.m.
Yeah, he was referring to Brian Johnson.
Oh, okay.
He just corrected.
Okay, Brian Johnson. But anyway, yeah, I mean, like these things can happen, and it's like if you are only chasing and you're not enjoying that process and you're not like enjoying the struggle, then you know when that tragedy comes out of nowhere, whether it's directly to you or a family member or something like.
Dude, as somebody who has literally dealt with it, I mean, I was like training for a 100-mile race and was the healthiest I'd ever been in my life, and then had a life-threatening spine infection come out of nowhere that like, just uproots everything you are doing. And like, yeah, it's humbling. It makes you reevaluate things for sure.
100%. But yeah, Brian Johnson, that's a different territory. Like on one hand, I actually do want to talk about this quickly because I think it's interesting and I'm curious what you guys think. I'm curious what the chat thinks. Brian Johnson is like, he sits in this weird place in my mind where a lot of what he's doing is like really good and really noble. It's like, okay, you want to take care of yourself. You want to be able to enjoy this process for as long as you possibly can. And you want to be able to do that in the best physical, mental, emotional state possible. And so certainly if you enjoy the process, it behooves you to take care of yourself and to find new ways to optimize and to live longer. But also, you kind of run into this like idea of like don't die on the extreme, and the end state is ultimately to just like stay alive as long as possible. And so I think there's like kind of a conflict there where it's like, you know, if you're totally optimizing for this long-term outcome of I don't want to die, I'm going to do everything that I can to extend my 80s, my 90s into the hundreds and try to live till I'm 120, 130, 140, then you're probably missing out on some things in the present. And so I think it kind of has to be a balancing act.
But I guess that's the same thing you could say about Keone James. Like he has a mission, which is to live forever, and he's going after it and achieving it, and like going through the research and going through the stuff like that seems like a project. That's something he's working on and doing. And I imagine that passion for achieving that is the same passion that drives anybody that is going after something that somebody else could say, look, you're missing out on sleep. You're not doing these things. You're working all the time. Like Keone works all the time. So like, I think that's when you find a passion, time absolves, like other things fall out and other people look at you like, oh, you're not doing this or you're not doing that, which could make you happier. But who's to say that they're not happy chasing what it is that they believe in?
Yeah, that's fair. That's 100% fair. So for him, Brian Johnson, the individual, I think that's like fine if that's his path. And he's like, I don't care about eating cheeseburgers. I'm fine eating kale. I like kale. I only want to eat kale, and it's part of my process that also leads to this long-term outcome, and I love the struggle. But on the other hand, it's like, well, what do you miss in the short term by, you know, going to bed at 8 p.m. every night? Like sometimes you're going to miss cool things that happen at 9 or 10.
Yeah,
and
but
sometimes there's a cheeseburger that's really enjoyable, and you can have that with a
But I
friend
think that's
and
the
just enjoy.
sacrifice you make when you find a goal that you're willing to attack. Like in order to run a 250-mile race, I had to run, dozens and dozens of miles while other people were partying. On New Year's Eve, people were out celebrating, and I was running at midnight. Like, people are saying, you're missing out on this and that, but I was achieving something that I wanted to do. I wasn't missing out on anything. If anything, in my mind, I felt like you guys are partying, missing out on life. So it isn't, I think it's very difficult for us to say what it is somebody is feeling or believing, because we all want very different things.
Yeah, I guess the difference is just like packaging it and selling it to other people as opposed to just like
Yeah, but
doing
that's a
the thing.
brand. Like that. I mean, yeah, he's selling the brand Don't Die, and like you're building an influencer brand. That could also be part of the fun. I think anybody that is selling you any type of diet that is a one size fits all is incorrect, because it's not a one size fits all. We all have genetics and like where our ancestors were is going to dictate how susceptible you are to certain foods and things. Like, there is no one size fits all.
True enough. True enough. Well, Mirth Mono in the chat says he's got to run. Fun show. Thanks, guys. If Mirth Mono's not here, then I'm not here either.
Yeah, I gotta
But
get some food. We got a workshop
we
coming
got
up.
we got a lot going on the Monad home front, so we will catch you next week. But in the meantime, please recommend guests that you want to see on Monad in the Morning. Feel free to dream big. We're going huge in season 2. We kicked it off with none other than James Hunsaker, the hometown favorite. But we're going to bring on guests from crypto and outside of crypto. And if you want to see somebody on Monad in the Morning, tag them, reach out to them, let us know, help get them on the show. We've got a great setup here in New York, and we would love to make this the biggest show on the internet.
This has got to be the crispiest live stream on the internet now. It's got to be.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Is Keone coming on next week?
Well, he has to now.
Well, just a little, I guess, a carrot that we can leave is I'm very curious to hear. We'll ask him James's question, and that's actually solid, because I'm very curious to hear what Keone would do with his last $100.
Yep, me too. Love it. All right. Thanks for being here. This is Monad in the Morning, the first episode of season 2. We will be back. Bigger guests, better production, clips, spins, and everything in between. Thanks.